Iran has issued a stern warning to the United Nations Security Council about the United States' recent provocative moves, that is, in the Persian Gulf. In a letter to the Council, Iran's permanent mission to the UN said the U.S. has ramped up its military presence and activities in the region in recent weeks. It raised the alarm over what it called U.S. warmongering tendencies, adding that Washington must bear the full responsibility of consequences. The letter also echoed Iran Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif's remarks, who said Iran does not seek war but will openly and directly defend its people's security and vital interests. Tensions in the region escalated after U.S. President Donald Trump accused Iran of playing a role in attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Iraq late last month, threatening retaliation. For more on that, we're joined by Mr. Max Parry, investigative journalist who is joining us live from New York. Mr. Max Parry, what is your opinion regarding these recent developments?
It can always count on the veto power of Russia and China, who have seats on the Security Council, but ultimately it knows that it can't really put any faith in the Security Council because, as we all remember, in 2003, that was where then U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell sold the lies that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction, which of course turned out to be not true. And of course, the Security Council also in 2011 adopted a resolution which imposed a no-fly zone over Libya and led to NATO's destruction of that country, which was also based on lies. And you know, they tried to do the same in Syria, but fortunately, Moscow and Beijing vetoed any authorization for military intervention and averted what would have been another disastrous regime change war, even though Syria was forced to go through, or still going through, almost a decade of proxy war being waged on it by the U.S. and its allies. So I think Iran knows that it can count on the veto power of Russia and China, but ultimately, you know, the UN Security Council, even though it was created ostensibly for the purpose of maintaining peace and stability around the world, it's very often become an instrument for war and an instrument for regime change on the part of the U.S. and its allies.
Now, Mr. Parry, I'd like to know your opinion regarding who would benefit from a Middle East that is full of tensions, and why would the United States at this point in time, while Trump is actually in his final days in the White House, would want to provoke some kind of war in the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, if the Trump administration is not trying to provoke an outright war, I think it's definitely trying to undermine any future attempt by the incoming Biden administration to engage diplomatically with Iran or possibly re-enter the JCPOA, which of course the Trump administration unilaterally scrapped, even though Iran was in compliance with it as determined by the inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency. They kept up their end of the bargain. So it's very apparent that the Trump administration, if it's not trying to provoke an outright war with you know, these false allegations that Iran was behind this dubious attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, or with the, you know, reckless and criminal assassination of their top scientist last month, if it's not trying to provoke a war, it's definitely they're trying to lay mines for the incoming Biden administration and undermine any future possible détente between the U.S. and Iran. That much is clear.
Why would they want to do that? Won't the U.S. benefit from having good relations with Iran?
Well, as we all know, the Trump administration, the unprecedented influence of the Israelis in its virtually every foreign policy move the Trump administration has made has benefited Israel in some way, and I think that who really benefits from a destabilized Middle East is Israel. And America's adventurism, its forays into the Middle East, has been knocking all these pieces off the chessboard that support the Palestinian resistance movement. And it's ultimately it's Israel that benefits from a destabilized Middle East for sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Max Parry, joining us live from New York, investigative journalist. Now, moving on.